Karina says, Grand Rising, everyone. Walaire St. Ville and I are joining from Panama City. And we have, of course, our very special person, my father, Blackwood Davis, who is joining us from New York City. And we have all the way on the other side of the world, we have our co-producer, Nico Concepcion, who is joining us for the Philippines. But Grand Rising, welcome to Jazz Stories told by Blackwood Davis. Okay, Dad.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we're going to jump back in and we're going to actually sort of roll the reel back and take you because when we were together the last time, we
Right.
were talking about, you started off with a couple of stories that really just still has stuck with me about your early days and your first introduction to big band.
Oh, yeah.
Your first introduction. So before we get into our highlighted musician, which is Miles Davis, we're going to go back in time a little bit because that was still, I don't think people quite understand how far back we're going. First off, Mr. Blackwood Davis, if you don't mind telling us just the year that you were born,
Oh, 37.
1937. So you are now 89 years old?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep, and you'll be 90 next year. So that's the first thing I think that perhaps I didn't make clear, and that when we go back, and that's why we want to show some pictures that'll give people a better idea and understanding of the time frame we're talking about. So, first thing I want to do is I want to go back a little bit again to this whole thing that really is just tripping me out, that my grandmother took you as a little boy to hear the big bands.
Yes, she did.
Okay. So I know at some point my husband is going to share a picture of you because I don't know if you can see that picture.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh,
So
wow.
that's you and your sister.
Right.
And how old are you in this picture? Do you even know? Remember?
Oh, maybe 5 or 6, and she was either 2 or 3 at the time.
Okay. So this is a picture of the two of you. The grandma took you. I'm glad that you allowed us to show this picture because I know my aunt, your sister Wilhelmina, died at a very young age.
Oh,
So
yes,
I
she
don't,
did.
yeah, yeah. But I want to go back to a happy time and that grandma, Deborah Davis, taking you guys to see the big bands.
Right.
Where did you go? So you guys are in Brooklyn. Where did you go to see these
Oh, well, she took us over to Manhattan at Times Square.
oh
And there was, at that time, a lot of the shows or the theaters, like the Paramount was where she took me the most.
mhm.
And they had music in the morning, you know,
Oh,
so it would start out early in the morning. Well, they might have did it all after, the whole, whatever, I don't know. But I remember her dragging me. She always wanted to get the first show because that was 55 cents or something like that. And so she would drag me to, I think maybe once or twice. I remember my sister with me, but she was small. So she took me to see, we go in there, we sit down, and back in those days, they had what they call warm up acts. And a lot of them was hoofers, tap dancers. I fell in love with them, man. And, they would open up the show, warm up the audience, more or less, they called it. And they might have a singer or something after that. And then they showed the big band. Now, the big bands I can't remember which one was the first one I saw. But they go back in the swing era with, after during World War II. Tommy Dorsey, Jimmy Dorsey, Duke Ellington, and they had singers with them. Like Tommy Dorsey band had Mel Torme, and they called him the Velvet Fog. But he was a very talented young man. He could play various instruments. In Tommy Dorsey's band at that time, Buddy Rich was the drummer.
mhm.
but he had broke his right arm, and he was in a cast. So Mel told me, like I said, being he's so talented, he could play drums, vibes, piano. He wrote tunes, all that stuff. I found out him later on in life, and there was one time I got my mind blown because Buddy Rich came in after maybe the third or fourth tune they played, and he sat down at the drums with his left hand. He did more with his left hand than I've seen guys do with two hands. And I was like fascinated by it. I said, how does he do that, man? But they had, Peggy Lee was one of the singers. Like I said, I never could over to see Frank Sinatra because that was the Bobby Soxers, and they was wild. So she didn't want to. She thought I might get hurt with them. So I never saw him, but I saw Duke Ellington, and he had this white drum in the band called Louis Belson.
Oh.
And he kicked two bass drums, and they had him on a thing where he was on a pedestal that would turn, so you could see him front and back. He was married to Pearl Bailey.
Oh.
So that was like very unusual at that time. Or black and white. That was. So, like I said, so I saw a lot of hoofers and a lot of the big bands right now, I can't even remember, man.
Well, you remember quite a bit because I don't know how much I would remember from 5 and 6 years old, or 7 and 8. So, hey, you remember quite a bit. And I guess that's because, you also went several times.
Oh,
This
yeah,
was something.
well, she would, it wasn't like every week or something like that. Maybe she might go once or twice or three times a year, 55 cents, man, but she tried to get the first show because she couldn't afford the second or the third show because the prices went up.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time, like I said, she took me to the Apollo a couple of times.
Oh.
But when the comedians would come on, she'd take me into the bathroom because they had the guy called Pigmeat Marham.
Oh, yeah.
And he was, he just said what came in his head, man. And Mom's Mabley, so she would take me, and she always took me to the women's bathroom, because she said, no, I ain't gonna, so it was very, and I was a little embarrassed after a while. Why'd you take me in there? Why are you taking me into a woman's bathroom, But that's where I saw Josephine Baker at the Apollo. And she would go see a band there that was a guy from her home town. Name was Erskine Hawkins. He had a band, and that's where he would appear at so every time he would come, she would drag me to see him, And then
Well, hey.
Right, okay.
No, I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh,
I'm
no,
just
no, no.
still just so amazed at the fact that, again, these are stories that I didn't even know took place in
Oh,
terms of
well,
for my
yeah.
grandmother, who I saw as a very proper church lady.
Oh, yeah, well,
And although she used to help me out playing the piano, yeah, these are not the songs.
yeah, well, she was strict with the church, but one thing she played on the radio back then, she loved country and western music.
That
And
I
she
remember.
and she loved the blues. So she would play them. She loved not Louis Armstrong, Louis Jordan. And he had a group there called the Five something. I forgot the name, the Tiffany Five or something. But he played alto and he sung. But they said he was supposed to have been a very hell of an alto player, but he went where the money could, where he could make a living. So he went into, you know, playing, the circuit,
Yeah.
the big, making the records and whatnot. He's the one that made Caledonia. What makes your big head so hard? Ain't nobody here but us chickens. The Darkstown Strutters Club. Oh man, and he did a thing on someone's wedding. Oh, he was, and she loved him, man. But he was like a rapper. He was rapping. He was literally talking because he was saying things like, "Ain't nobody here but us chickens. Ain't nobody here at all. So quiet yourself and stop that fuss. Ain't nobody here but us. We chickens trying to sleep and you bust in. Gobble, 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 gobble. It's a sin." Because these guys were stealing the chickens. So, the farmer's coming out. Who's in there? And he said, "Ain't nobody here but us chickens."
Dad, in
uh,
going to the shows with grandma, you mentioned the Hoovers would warm up the audience.
oh, yeah.
It just happens that decades later, your neighbor was a Hoover, right?
Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Bacon.
Mr. Bacon. Mr. Bacon.
Mm-hmm.
I was crazy about tap dancers. That's what I wish when I was in public school, we had a chance to go to performative arts to see the school. It was on a school trip. And that's what I wanted to do. But my mother didn't know about that. I never could do it, because I didn't know it, but I've seen wow, one of the greatest tap dances I've ever saw in my life. Was quite a few, but one that a lot of people, Sammy Davis Jr., he was excellent, hell of a dancer, hell of a dancer. And I was extremely moved by tap dance, the Sandman, the two brothers,
Nicholas Brothers.
man, they were oh.
See, we have to all sit here and take down some of these names, and for the Nicholas Brothers and all I know. But for some of the people you were talking about, once I listen to the recording, I have to now go back and do a little research.
Oh
So
yeah,
I
no,
know.
they had oh God, I'm trying to think of this guy's. Oh, there was the Four Step Brothers. There was a group, and they was always on warm ups for the big bands for them. And then there was Piglet Bates, and I forgot the guy that he was dancing with. He did a lot of sand dancing. And then they had the Blackburn Twins. What's the name's brother was a dancer? Pearl Bailey's brother. I forgot his name. He was a dancer. But there was, and what was happening, a lot of the people up there that was dancing and whatnot, downtown, which is Broadway, would come uptown and take notes. And then they bring it back downtown. That's how they was, dipping and dabbing, stealing, what they call it, plagiarizing and whatnot. And there was a story between the Nicholas brothers and Gene Kelly. Well, he was a Hollywood dancer. He was good, very good. So they was going to do a skit. Can you see me?
I can see it's just that Willard has put up a picture of the Three Deuces. I think he's trying to get us back on track, on schedule.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right. Oh, yeah, that now. All right, now the Three Deuces are 52nd Street.
Now that's amazing to me, and I think a lot of people will be interested in knowing that this is 52nd Street. Because if you go on Google Maps now and take a look at 52nd Street, you can't even imagine that any of this took place because it doesn't look at all like that.
Okay, I was too young to go there. But that's where they was playing bebop then. That's with Bird, Dizzy, Earl Garner, and Kenny Clark, people like that. That was coming down there and playing. Oscar Pettiford. They was it was like a block of ill repute. They called it. And the reason why because they had prostitution, drugs, and jazz. So they the police was always, from what I understand, raiding a lot, disrupting, a lot, So eventually that died out, 52nd Street.
When did it, do you remember the time period that it sort of died out? That 52nd Street wasn't that
Well,
sort of jazz alley?
it had to be around maybe prior to 50s, around there, it might have, like I said, because they was clamping down a lot on it. Because there was a lot of stuff going out there. So I guess they wanted to clean it up, so they did. So I would figure around the 50s or maybe 51, but then that's when everybody started going back up to Minton's. That was up in Harlem. I never got there neither, but that's where Monk played it. He was the house piano up there. So they all came there, man.
Yeah, because in fact, Nico shared with us a picture from the Library of Congress that has Coleman Hawkins with Miles in the background.
Right.
And
Well,
it said that the picture was shot at the Three Deuces, and I'm going to give the address because I looked it up and I found out the Three Deuces used to be at 72 West 52nd Street. And it was seen as the primary incubator for the bebop movement.
That's right. That's right.
So you never saw anyone play there?
No, I was too young to go there.
So you couldn't get in there even with your
Well, I didn't have a big mustache then. I was just starting high school by that
Okay.
time.
Oh, so you were just starting high school then.
And I didn't know nothing about jazz at the time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So now Willaire put up on the screen a picture of you, May 1956. And I know this is May 1956 because I have the original picture had the month
the
and the
date
year
on
on
it.
it.
Right. Yeah, that was in Prospect Park when I was seeing your grandmother. I was dating her at the time.
You mean my mother?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Hey, senior moment. Sorry.
Yeah. So, okay, so we're going to take a look. So when did you first get introduced to Miles?
Well, okay. I got into Boys High.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a speech problem at the time. I would stutter, all because of maybe fear. So I had to go to a speech therapy class. Well, in that speech therapy class, there was a young man in there named Wessel Anderson. So he started enlightening me about jazz. And he started telling me all these different stories about Miles and Monk. So I just got overwhelmed with it. And I started, I want to know, how you said, I got very hungry. More, more, more. And we would sit down and make up groups, just for the hell of it. Well, that young man, Wessel Anderson, he turned out to be a drummer. And he had a son named, I think it's Wessel, I can't remember, but his son was an alto player that played with Count Basie's band. Eventually, he wound up playing with Wynton Marsalis band, and they called him Warm Daddy. So from Wessel, there he started telling me about Miles and Bird and Dizzy, and so they had a nickname for Miles back then, the Prince of Darkness. They called him, And the first time I heard of him, I started buying, singles. Back in them days, just a little pride in LPs. It was a 78. So I was buying 78s for Bird because Bird and Miles was on the same date. And I started hearing this cat, man, I liked what he was doing. Now Dizzy was like all over the horn. Dizzy was just as fast. He was just as fast as Bird, But Miles was laid back, more or less. So when Bird be going, it was like Ike and Mike or Yin and Yang. He was just the opposite of Bird. But it fitted that format because you hear Bird and then you hear Miles go in a different direction, but it all came together. Miles could play spaces. Oh man, he was something else. And that's how I got introduced to Miles. And the first time I saw him, he had concholine. He had a processed hair.
Mm-hmm.
Putting that. Everybody looked at it and said, wow, what is this cat doing processed hair? But he wanted to look. That was his. I said, well, he come out Midwest. He don't know, But Miles was like, back in them days, he was very outwardly
Mm-hmm.
talking and kidding around, playing around. He got like that later on, much later on down the road, where he just stopped talking to the audience, But Miles come out of money. He didn't come out of no poor family. He come out of East St. Louis. His father was a dentist. His name was Miles. And his mother was a music teacher. And Miles looked just like her, but him and her never got, it was like oil and vinegar. It was always clashing with each other. Now, when Miles came to New York, he had begged his father to let him go to New York. His father said, oh, well, I'll do that if you can go to Juilliard. So he compromised. He said, okay. So he went to Juilliard. He only stayed maybe 3 or 4 semesters. He passed the audition and was playing. But then he was out there on the street, 52nd Street and Mittens, coning his craft. And then he even said later on, I learned more from these guys than I did in school. Mm-hmm. So why should I be in school? So he left. He wasn't a drug addict back then. Bird was. Oh, Bird was strung out. And like I said, so Miles, what else you want to know about him from there?
Well, you said that, which is key. He had somewhat different background from many of the other musicians. He came from, money and established sort of family. He came to New York and compromised to go to Juilliard, but then found, hey, this is where I need to be with these musicians and to develop. And I'll say, as you talked about before, develop your own sound. So you can tell us a little bit about Miles's sound.
Oh, Miles. If you listen to Miles and you listen to Dizzy, now Miles wanted to play like Dizzy. And you hear some early Miles dates that he did with Bird. He's like trying to be all, he's trying to cover all this stuff. So one day he went to talk to Dizzy and he asked Dizzy, he says, man, I'm trying, but I can't seem to, get that. He says, so Dizzy said, don't play that. No, he said, you don't hear up there. Play down here what you hear. And that's what Miles did. So then instead of going, and he just dragged it out slow, picked his shots, created this. And, Miles could play spaces like nobody I've ever seen in my life. When he's not playing.
What does that mean?
Some of us, yeah.
What does that mean, playing spaces?
Okay. In other words, say you got to, let's say there's 4 beats to the bar. 1, 2, 3. Miles would go bop and let that go by. The second bar, biddy, the bop, bop, bop.
So
Bop, bop.
he extended the space between the
Yeah.
notes.
Well, he didn't extend nothing. He just be quiet. And then he would come in. Just when you say, yeah, you would say, hey, I got a hiccup. But what? And then he would go, and then he, oh, yeah. What else? And then he knew how to play spaces very well. When he
Okay, you know what? Because I am trying to also, as I go through some of your collection that you have gifted me, and we'll talk about albums because you talked about 78s and about, listening to individuals. Okay, can you, if for someone like me or for other people, are there particular albums you could suggest for us to listen to so we get a better idea of Miles and his sound? Or just listen to all of them? Or is
well,
there some way where we can start? Is there like, where you have this is where you can get an idea of his early sound and as this is the mid-level so that we can see the difference in
okay, all right. Now there's something you might be able to get, and might not, because the ones he did them 10 inches, unless they don't, put them on a 12 inches. But you get like walking. This is a good day. I would say that one, And then he made one called Musing of Miles, Musing. And that's with him and the rhythm section.
But these are 78s.
No, these are albums.
Oh, these are albums. Okay.
You ain't gonna get no 78.
And they may have been remastered, so we may find them remastered.
Right.
Musing of Miles.
So I would start with those two. And then when he got his first, and then you got those things he did with Prestige, relaxing, working, steaming. I would take relaxing because there was 4 albums he did. I can tell you about that later on. And then he did with Columbia when he had, Coltrane is on the one relaxing, steaming, and working. And Coltrane is on round about midnight. I would get that one on Columbia. And then, you can just work your way up. There was one thing he made back, The Birth of Cool. That's when he did a collaboration with Gil Evans. And that's when they was playing like third string. Miles was way into that back in the 50s, early 50s. Gary Mulligan is on it, Lee Konitz, guys that, because he didn't want nobody that was bebop influence. He had John Lewis on it. He had a French horn on it there, or a tuba, one of them on it. Yeah, so that's a good one. But just openers. And then after that, you get So What?
Yes.
It's the greatest selling jazz album ever. And in between that, I would buy, there's a bunch of them. He did, a lot of stuff he did, Sketches of Spain. Porgy and Bess. I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
That's a pretty good list. That's a good list.
That might be something to start with. There's a lot he did a lot of work in between there. The one that I thought was and it's not his date, but he got it on his date, Something Else with Cannonball Adderley. That's a bad date. And it's Cannonball's date. That's a bad date. And you can hear Miles, oh man, and how he played with spaces on that one, very clear. Miles to me was extremely lyrical. But all the guys back in those days were more lyrical than they are today. When Coltrane came up, he took it outside.
Okay.
And so the thing was so amazing about Miles, I don't know if any musician that covered, most musicians might cover one or two schools, and that's it. He covered five. He went from bebop, hard bop, stream. Oh God! And then he got into the funkadelic and all that. That's five,
Mhm.
5 venues of music.